Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto Explain, and today we're gonna be living dangerously. We're gonna be making the video I never in like 9,000 years ever thought that I would be making. However, as I was working on this really big video on Danzo and an even bigger video on the Uchiha clan, which I am gonna be sending off to get edited by one of the people who's helped me with editing for videos in the future, I gotta say, man, as I was working on the Danzo video, I said, holy crap, man, I think I just changed my whole perspective on Danzo. Okay, like, you're talking to somebody who used to sell t-shirts saying all because of Danzo. Like, Danzo was on my character shit list for a very long time, but I gotta admit, Danzo is misunderstood. I don't think that Danzo was wrong. Now, don't get me wrong, Danzo has a lot of blood on his hands. Like, the whole Uchiha massacre, that's all blood on Danzo's hand. He's got blood on his ledger. Nobody disputes that. Kabuto's mom, Danzo is responsible for that as well. I'm not disputing that. However, as I got to looking at the character, I really feel like Danzo is not wrong in his ultimate goal. Okay, so when you look at the character of Danzo, ultimately Danzo understood that, like, when it comes to the shinobi world is not something that can be treated with kid gloves. It's not something where everybody's gonna work all together. Now, in the Boruto era, absolutely, like, they get to talk their problems out. Every now and then they have squabbles where they don't necessarily agree with each other, and you even have somebody like Shikamaru, who, when you really look at Shikamaru's character, especially in the Shikamaru Shinden novel, he's really serving that role of Danzo to Naruto, basically being the root that's supporting the actual tree. But not getting off track though, Danzo, when you really look at it, he's really a byproduct of the era that he came up in. You gotta understand, Danzo was one of the very first academy students for the Ninja Academy. Okay, like when Hashirama's telling Madara about how in the Ninja Academy they had enough prosperity that was going on after Madara left the village, that young children were able to go into the academy and live long enough to where they could actually drink sake and other beverages and everything. You know, you have this moment where, when you really look at Danzo's character, he was one of the very first students to go there. I believe he's one of the first 100 students, if I'm not mistaken by that. And Danzo came up during a time where the First Great Ninja War was going on, where you see all these different people from all these different nations fighting against one another. In the First Great Ninja War, Danzo had to watch as Hashirama Senju died during the First Great Ninja War. He had to watch as, during the First Great Ninja War, somebody like Kakuzu attempted to assassinate the first Hokage. It was during the first Hokage's lifetime that he got to see Hashirama use wood style in front of him in a battle, and he was able to see, like, oh man, wood style's really incredible, and that started his fascination with wanting to recapture the power of the first Hokage, who many people deemed to be the most powerful Hokage. Obviously Prime Hiruzen's a little bit different, but by that point you have this moment where Danzo had already been attempting to recreate the power of the first Hokage. He watched as the second Hokage, someone that he absolutely admired and looked up to, the second Hokage, was killed by the Ginkaku and Kinkaku forces, where the Gold and Silver brothers led the attack and Tobirama Senju died. And it's because Danzo, he offered to be the decoy, but he did so too late, and it actually ended up being Hiruzen Sarutobi. Danzo was sitting there like, oh man, maybe I should do it, maybe I should do it. Hey Hiruzen, why don't you do it? Aren't you so special? And then Hiruzen actually volunteers, and you have that moment where he has his shame. Now, the thing about it is, he watched the First Great Ninja War wipe out 2 generations of Kages in all 5 ninja villages. So in the span of that war, 10 Kages had died. He also watched as Hiruzen started the second and third Great Ninja War, and granted, during the second Great Ninja War he attempted to side with Hanzo and pull off some stuff against Konoha behind the scenes, but what's to say when you look at that, where at the time he's looking at it, Hiruzen started the war. He started the second Great Ninja ninja war. We don't know necessarily where Danzo stood when it came to starting that war, but the thing is that given how long that war had actually waged, it wouldn't be of a huge surprise if he didn't necessarily agree with it, and siding with Hanzo was a way for him to usurp the third Hokage to potentially end that war. And you have the third Great Ninja War, and you have those moments where in the aftermath of all of that, you have this moment where Danzo's watching as more people are starting to gravitate towards Minato being the Hokage candidate, and somebody that he personally had backed like Orochimaru is pushed to the sidelines. In that time period after Minato died, you had this moment where Danzo's trying to recruit Kakashi in the filler arc, the Kakashi Anbu filler, but Danzo had an eye for talent. Danzo understood that this ninja world, the only way that you could really make people come to see things in peace, given where they were at the time period, the only thing that the great nations understood was overwhelming power. Danzo understood he needed to have talented shinobi like Kakashi. He needed to have wood release on his side. He needed to have a way to control the Nine Tails Jinchuriki as a way to use the most powerful of the Biju against all the different ninja villages. Danzo understood that the only way to make people see peace was to have it through overwhelming force. Now that brings me to the Uchiha clan, because that's mostly where a lot of people feel like Danzo's character was at that point of no return, and I agree with that. However, the reason why I went through that whole spiel of how Danzo's character was affected by what happened and growing up in a post-Warring States era, and then growing up during the first Great Ninja War, watching comrades die, watching your Kages from all the different villages die, and living through 3 ninja wars, is the fact that Danzo understood that in the Uchiha clan, you had the possibility of there being another Madara Uchiha. Danzo watched as a Setsuna Uchiha was plotting to overthrow Tobirama Senju as the second Hokage. So in the Uchiha clan, you already had others who were attempting to take up Madara's will. They're attempting to take it up. Now, granted, some of that's done because you have Tobirama. He had a bit of mistrust towards the Uchiha, and giving them the Uchiha police force position was more of a way to potentially keep them on a shorter leash than anything else. But the thing is Danzo understood that if he wanted to have peace for the ninja world, first you have to have peace within the village. If you have a threat like the Uchiha who is never really satisfied, and as time goes on, it really feels as if you have a situation where a Fugaku Uchiha goes from wanting to become Hokage to all of a sudden feeling shafted and shamed by the village. Now you have a situation where Danzo's looking at them and they could tear everything upside down. They could tear everything upside down. They're the most powerful clan in the village. They could potentially take over the Hokage position, and if they were to gain power, it lead to a civil war, and the village that Danzo loves will be in utter flames. And when you look at how the Uchiha get their power, they get their power through the loss of love. It drives them to the brink of insanity, in my opinion, when you really look at it, because as they gain more power, they lose another part of themselves emotionally. Now, you have exceptions like Sarada, you have exceptions like Sasuke, who over time was able to overcome that, but the fact of the matter is they were too much of a wild card that needed to be taken off the table. And so when you look at the Uchiha massacre, you know, Danzo understood, like, I can manipulate Itachi, someone who is in love with the village. He clearly has Hokage aspirations, which I've talked about, but at the same time, Itachi was a once-in-a-generation prodigy, and once Danzo saw very early on that Itachi wasn't just a once-in-a-generational prodigy, but he was a prodigy above prodigies. From Itachi's time at the academy, Danzo was looking at him saying, I'm going to use this kid to massacre the Uchiha. I don't know how, but I'm going to begin grooming the kid. That's why he approached him when Itachi graduated from the academy, and he asked him this riddle. If I'm not mistaken, it was in the Itachi Daylight novel. So I'm doing this one off of the top of the head. I don't have any notes or anything on this, but in that novel, you have Danzo go up to Itachi and he asks him, he says like, hey, you know, if you're the captain of a crew and one of the crewmates that you have, one of the passengers, they get sick with this illness, and if it's not treated, it's going to kill everybody on board. And if the only way to save your crewmates is to kill the person, what would you do? You don't have supplies, you don't have enough time to get to land. What would you do? It was his way of making sure that Itachi can make that cold and calculated risk. Now, the thing about this is I do believe that where Danzo messed up is because of his hatred for the Uchiha, and it wasn't hatred in the sense that he was like, oh, I just despise all Uchiha. It isn't that. It isn't that. Like, I joke, I call him Danzo Trump. Like, I joke like everybody else. But the thing is Danzo's hatred for the Uchiha, it wasn't necessarily just pure hate so much as this is mankind's nature, okay? In mankind's nature, you hate what you don't understand and you fear what you don't conquer. So when you look at this, the Uchiha were something that he didn't understand, and there was something that he knew he couldn't overpower. So that's what led to that hatred, because it was hatred and fear that guided his actions, because he feared that the Uchiha clan would become too powerful and it would go off the rails and it would lead to the destruction of his village. Everything he did in the interest that he was doing the best interest for the actual village itself. And I think that while it was wrong, it was definitely wrong, at the same time, his intentions were good. Now, as you know, the expression goes, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. You know, everybody has good intentions, but you know, they go about it the wrong way. That's something everybody can relate to. But when it comes to this character Danzo, what I particularly love is the fact that when you go back and examine his character, he had a moment where when he had Itachi in his grasp, he could have used Itachi as a way to potentially be the bridge between the Uchiha clan and the actual village, maybe even prevent the Uchiha coup d'etat from happening. By that point, Fugaku was pretty much on edge and planning the coup d'etat, and part of the reason, according to the Itachi Midnight novel, so the second Itachi novel, according to that novel, one of the breaking points is very heavily implied. When Fugaku saw that Itachi's Hokage dream was being crushed, Itachi was talented, but he would never be able to be Hokage. Itachi was a character who was being held back. He wasn't being promoted. He was being held back by his sensei. All these different small things. It was one of those moments where Fugaku understood the only way things could actually change is if the Uchiha clan took power. Now, up to this point, Danzo had essentially kept Fugaku from helping to deal with the Nine Tails, which could have potentially saved Minato's life, because Fugaku was stated to be a generational talent, much like Minato was. He was mentioned in the same breath as Minato. He was applauded by Danzo, and the third Hokage didn't refute any of Danzo's statements about Fugaku in comparison to Minato. So you have these moments where, yes, because he made bad with Fugaku, maybe that was the point of no return, but Fugaku genuinely loved Itachi, and I feel like that could have been a moment where, just like Itachi said, maybe Sasuke could have made the clan see things a different way. First, by going through Itachi and having Itachi be the one that serves as that buffer between the two clans, that opens up the door for Itachi to make the decision to use Sasuke. And I feel like at that point, Danzo's fear of the Uchiha clan could have been handled, because that threat of the Uchiha rising would have been something that could have been prevented. But at the end of the day, we can't talk about ifs, we can only talk about what was. And the fact of the matter is that Danzo prevented a coup d'etat. That coup d'etat would have actually led, if it was successful, to the downfall of the Hidden Leaf Village. It would have led to another country, like someone aggressive like the Hidden Cloud Village, coming to take over the village. So I think that at the end of the day, Danzo was right. However, I want to know from you guys, how do you guys feel? Do you think that the legacy of Danzo is one that should be shat on, or do you think it's one that we should say we don't agree with his methods, but his heart was in the right place and he should be acknowledged? What do you guys think about that? But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.